Assalamualaikum, we are from AFIM and Associate Advocates and Solicitors, and today we will be presenting our shareholders agreement between Marcona Sinan Mr. Darian Bendao and Ms. Camilla Vicky Chong. Our presentation will cover three main areas. First, we will examine whether the shareholders' rights and duties have been properly addressed in the agreement. Second, we will discuss whether the agreement fulfills the essential elements of a valid and binding contract under the Contract Act 1950. Lastly, we will explain how this agreement reflects the legal principle and concept that we have learned throughout this semester. Now, I will start the presentation by presenting the first provision that governs the duties of the shareholders. Firstly, under clause 5.3, it sets out the responsibilities of every shareholder. Under this clause, each shareholder is required to act honestly, in good faith, and in the best interest of the company. Shareholders must also actively support the company's business objective and strategic direction while contributing their knowledge, expertise, and experience towards the development and growth of the company's technology business. In addition, Clause 5.2 requires shareholders to protect the company's intellectual property, confidential information, software, source codes, databases, and other proprietary assets. Shareholders must also avoid any act or omission that may damage the company's reputation, goodwill, or commercial interests. Finally, they are required to comply with its shareholder agreements, the company's constitution, the Companies Act 2016, and all applicable laws. Moving on to Clause 5.4, this clause requires shareholders to ensure that the company complies with all applicable laws and regulations relating to digital technology, cybersecurity, data protection, electronic commerce, and intellectual property rights. It also provides that the company shall use its best endeavors to obtain and maintain all licenses, approval, and certification necessary for the lawful operation of its business. Lastly, Clause 5.5 emphasizes the importance of continuous investment in research, innovation, and technological development to enhance the company's competitiveness in the digital technology industry. The clause also states that any significant investment in new digital products, software, platform, or emerging technologies must receive prior approval from the board before implementation. This ensures that the major investment decisions are carefully evaluated and are in line with the company's long-term objective. In conclusion, clauses 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5 of the shareholder agreement clearly define the management responsibilities of shareholders by promoting ethical conduct, legal compliance, protection of the company's valuable assets, and sustainable business growth through innovation. That's all. Thank you.
Next, I'll be explaining on the rights of the shareholders in our shareholder agreement. Firstly, the right to own shares is provided under clause 4.1.3. This clause confirms that each shareholder is the legal and beneficial owner of the shares registered in their name. This means that the shareholders have legal ownership and are entitled to the rights attached to those shares, such as voting rights and the rights to receive dividends. This allows each shareholder to participate equally in making important company decisions and ensures that none of the shareholders can dominate the other. Clause 4.1.4 provides the right of shareholders to approve new issuance of shares. Based on this clause, no additional shares can be issued unless both of the shareholders agree to it. This protects the shareholders from having their ownership percentage diluted without their consent, and also ensures that both shareholders have equal control over changes of the company's structure. Additionally, the right to receive dividends is provided under Clause 7. So, dividends are provided to each shareholder according to their percentage of ownership. This ensures that each shareholder receives a fair return for the investment when the company makes profits. Moreover, Clause 11 provides the preemptive rights of the shareholders. If a shareholder wishes to sell their shares, they must first offer those shares to the other shareholders before selling them to a third party. This gives the existing shareholder the first opportunity to maintain their ownership of shares and prevents unwanted third party from becoming shareholders. Next, Clause 12 provides the tag-along rights of a shareholder. If a shareholder sells a substantial amount of shares to a third party, the other shareholder has the right to join such a sale and sell their own shares for the same price and terms. This protects the minority shareholders by ensuring that they receive the same benefit as the selling shareholder. The drag-along rights is also provided under Clause 13, where if both parties unanimously agree to sell the company, they both have the right to sell their shares on identical terms and conditions. This ensures equal treatment and allows the sale of the company to proceed smoothly. Last but not least, Clause 17.2.2 provides the rights of the shareholders to receive the remaining assets after winding up. If the company is dissolved, after all debts and liabilities have been paid, the remaining assets of the company will be distributed among the shareholders according to their shareholding percentage. This ensures that the shareholders receive their fair share of the company's remaining value.
Regarding the legal validity of the contract, the parties acknowledge that this agreement constitutes a legally binding contract and satisfies the essential requirements of a valid contract under the Contracts Act 1950. For offer and acceptance, each party acknowledges that this agreement is entered into following a clear offer made by the parties concerning the regulation of their relationship as shareholders of the company. Acceptance of the terms and conditions contained in this agreement shall be evidenced by the execution of this agreement by all parties. Each party confirms that they have read, understood, and voluntarily accepted every provision contained herein without fraud, coercion, under influence, or misrepresentation. For consideration, the parties acknowledge that their respective promises, obligations, capital contributions, right as shareholders, and mutual undertakings constitute sufficient consideration for the purposes of the Contract Act 1950. Each party agrees that the consideration exchanged under this agreement is lawful, adequate, and binding upon all parties pursuant to the Contract Act 1950 and directly relates to the rights and obligations established by this agreement. For financial consideration, as the essential legal consideration supporting this binding contract, the initial capital contributions and share allocations are structured as follows. For Darien hereby contributes a cash consideration of 1 million ringgit Malaysia cash into the company's business bank account. In direct return for this consideration, the company issues and delivers 1 million ordinary shares amounting to 50% shares to Darien. For Camellia hereby contributes a cash consideration of 1 million ringgit Malaysia cash into the company's business bank account. In direct return for this consideration, the company issues and delivers 1 million ordinary shares amounting to 50% shares to Camellia.
Now, I will continue by discussing the remaining two essential elements of a valid contract under the Contracts Act 1950, namely certainty and capacity. Firstly, capacity. Under Section 11 of the Contracts Act 1950, every person is competent to have contract if they have attained the age of majority, are of sound mind, and are not disqualified by law. In our agreement, namely Clause 2.4.1, it confirms that Markona Sendirian Berhad, Darien bin Daud, and Kamalia binti Chong have their legal capacity to enter into this agreement as the shareholders are adults, are of sound mind, and possess full legal authority. Furthermore, Clause 2.4.2 confirms that the shareholders are not bankrupt or subject to any legal disability that would affect their ability to perform their obligations under the agreement. Moving on to the last element, which is certainty. Under Section 30 of the Contracts Act 1950, an agreement is void if its meaning is uncertain or cannot be made certain. In our shareholders' agreement, this requirement is fulfilled through Clause 2.5, which states that the terms of the agreement are sufficiently clear, comprehensive, and determinable. For example, Clause 2.3.1 and 2.3.2 clearly provide that Darien bin Daud and Kamalia binti Chong each contribute RM1 million and receive 1 million ordinary shares, representing 50% ownership each. The agreement also clearly sets out their voting rights, management responsibilities, and also the procedures for the transfers of shares. Therefore, there is no uncertainty regarding the rights and obligations of each shareholder. In conclusion, together with the offer, acceptance, and consideration that is explained before, our shareholders' agreement between Markona Sendirian Berhad, Darien bin Daud, and Kamalia binti Chong fulfills all the essential elements of a valid contract under the Contracts Act 1950. Therefore, it is a legally valid and binding agreement.
Okay, so in conclusion, this assignment have given us a deeper understanding on the importance of the shareholder agreement in regulating the relationship between shareholder and ensuring effective corporate governance. We learned that a well-drafted agreement clearly defines the right, duties, and responsibility of shareholder, helping to minimize disputes and helping the interests of both the company and its shareholder. We also gained a better understanding on how the essential of a 1950 offer, acceptance, consideration, capacity, and certainty are applied to ensure that the shareholder agreement are legally valid and enforceable. In addition, the assignment enhance our understanding of the practical application of the Companies Act 2016, particularly in relation to shareholder rights, director responsibility, and company management. Preparing these agreements also improve our legal drafting, legal research, and teamwork and communication skill. Overall, this project provides us with a valuable practical experience in preparing professional legal documents while strengthening our understanding of Malaysian corporate law.